Tally Deep. I work as the Manager of Corporate Diversity and Inclusion at NYC Universal. That's where I'm responsible for, at the corporate level, working with all of our community partners in 100+ organizations that we work with across company, and working with our diverse practitioners within the company, so in news, in entertainment, at cable, at Telemundo, at Universal Parks, and of course our colleagues across the way at Comcast, because we are Comcast at NBC Universal. So that's a role that I've been doing now for just almost a year. Prior to that, I was working at NBC News as a news producer for 6 years. So I worked on The Today Show, Nightly, Meet the Press, Dateline, as a producer at News Gathering. So I was actually working all around the clock from 4 a.m. for The Today Show all the way through till 7. So having a strong work ethic is definitely part of my DNA. Basically, I think the one lesson, I think you're saying, if I knew what I know now, sitting here and thinking of myself as a college student, I think the one thing is definitely don't ever be afraid to work very, very hard, especially in media. There's no 9 to 5. There's no taking 2 weeks off here and there to go see your parents and go to Europe for a month. It's definitely to the grind. And then the second one is be super kind, because you have no idea who the person sitting next to you. They may wind up becoming your boss one day. So it doesn't matter what level, interns all the way up to the CEO, treat them exactly the same, because you really never know. It's such an interesting industry. So, yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Round of applause.
Hi everyone. My name is Annabelle Padilla. I'm the Director of Player Engagement for the Brooklyn Nets. So my role is one in which it's, I'd say, a little unique because it's new to the organization. So twofold. I work on all the player services side. So anything that these guys need off the court, whether it be helping out with their day-to-day life in terms of their families, tickets, so we have some international players, getting their visas, a lot of the sort of logistical intangibles that you don't know that goes on behind the scenes, anything that can sort of help them focus on the game and their profession. The other part of my role is working very closely with our business side. So if you think about it, obviously these are the best athletes in the world, right? Best basketball players in the world, but it's also a business. So how do you work with your ticket sales, sponsorship, community, all those engagements that ask of these guys time, because as a professional athlete, there are commitments to the business. So how do you work with players in one where you can maximize the business, but make sure that it's authentic to the brand, and more importantly to the player. Because you cannot have every player doing everything. It's not physically possible. So how do you create a role that can maximize both sides of the business, maximize the play on the court, these gentlemen as young professionals, and also maximize the business. Prior to the Brooklyn Nets, it's actually just my first season. I started in August, but I was with the Atlanta Hawks for 2 years. And they actually took a chance on me. It was the first time for that position in Atlanta. So didn't know anyone, born and raised in New Jersey, so, went out on a whim to move to Atlanta, which I really enjoyed. Prior to that, I was with the NBA for 9 years, which is right here in Midtown Manhattan. So have a really great league and team perspective in the sports industry. While it is sports, it is a business. And I know there's a very strong program here at St. John's with sport management, so I'm happy to sort of talk and shed some insight. And I'd say the one thing, if sort of I was in college, is obviously echoing what you said, and I'm sure everyone here, but do your research and network. I remember we had this conversation when we initially chatted. I didn't use Facebook, I didn't have LinkedIn. I'm on social media, but I'm not as active. But there are so many means right now for anyone to connect with anybody. And we all get conversations, messages on LinkedIn. We'd love to find out more about your role. Are you all hiring? Which I would encourage that. I did not do that growing up. I sort of put my head down and you did the work and you just threw your application out anywhere. But in reaching out, in speaking with people, make sure you're prepared. Make sure that you have the right questions, you know the person's background. I always say encourage networking, but it should be appropriate networking, that you've done all the research you can at that point to have the right ask, to have the right conversation, because then you never know where it can lead.
That's awesome.
How's everybody doing? I'm Gerald Yarborough. I am a creative director at Nickelodeon. I oversee the product design and development group. So all the products that you go to stores to buy, from children's toys all the way up to adult collaboration fashion comes through my team. I'm an artist by trade, but the biggest thing is I'm able to kind of be that fine role between business and creative at the same time, because you got to make sure that when you're making products that you're meeting the marketing needs, you're meeting the business needs, and at the same time you're tying to what's going on air and bring it into where you can actually carry that play, carry that experience through the lifespan of a property or IP. So the way I got into my job was an internship. I'm actually a proud product of Jamaica, New York. So I was born and raised here in Jamaica, New York. I actually am an alumni here from St. John's University. So I'm happy to be back. I actually got to run into the mascot when I came here, so I was super excited because I went here when the mascot used to be a horse. So I'm so excited that change is always good. But I started in that industry literally as an intern. I interned at MTV making copies. And it speaks to the point of like what I want to explain to you. Like sometimes don't worry about the money in the beginning and even throughout your career. I know a lot of times you guys are here today because everybody says, I got to secure the bag, I got to get to the bag. But I'm going to let you know, forget about the bag. That's why I want to really focus on your purpose and why you're going to be there. You know, a lot of times if you're worried about money, you'll find yourself in a place doing things you might not necessarily be happy about, proud about, or even be able to look back and say, I wanted to continue to do this. But if you focus on your purpose, you put yourself in a position where money will come, opportunities will come. But I literally made copies for 6 months at Nickelodeon. And by doing that, making these copies, sending them off to SpongeBob Creator, I thought at the end of the time they just did a series of layoffs. They said there's no jobs here, we don't know what's going on. But because I made copies with excellence, the designers were like, dude, I don't want to go back to making copies. So could we find a way to get Gerald a job? So when people begin to lobby for you because you did something excellence, that's what really becomes your brand. And I got that internship. I started making $750 a week just making copies. And then I like to say it's like the rest is history, because now I get to oversee a $15 million business where they trust me to do that. You know, like I said, the same guy that made copies is overseeing a $15 million business, and this is a great opportunity, but always stop worrying about money. I just want to just put that out there. Get to your purpose.
Awesome. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Zanitra Barron. I am the Director of Point of Sale Strategy and Education for HBO. That's a lot of fancy words that pretty much means my group is responsible for setting our specific sales strategy for HBO. So it's very different than a traditional marketing where we're pushing the show. We wanted to understand what's important to customers and what do we need to say to customers to get them to say yes to an HBO subscription. Then my team pulls together a training curriculum. We design the curriculum for our internal ambassadors who then go out into our affiliate spaces. So whether you have Comcast or AT&T, or maybe you're getting HBO through Apple, through HBO Now, we wanted to make sure that there was one consistent message, because you're getting the same product no matter which affiliate you're able to subscribe from. So we wanted to make sure there was one message, so we created a full curriculum design to make sure that we train our internal ambassadors who go out to the affiliates, and then we also have a training program for the agents who actually doing the filming on the phone. In terms of career track history, my degree is actually in accounting, which I know is a bit of a switch, making that jump into sales and marketing. I started out as an auditor working for PricewaterhouseCoopers. It was a very interesting scenario. You know, sometimes when you're in school, you're learning about business in theory, or you're learning about the job in theory. And there are these certain scenarios where they tell you, oh, this is the worst case scenario. You'll never have this. I had every single one of those in about 18 months. And it wore me a little thin, but it did help increase my work ethic. I mean, I'm telling you, I could work from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. with no problems. I don't want to do it every day, but I have the capacity to be able to do that. So I started out as an auditor. I left PricewaterhouseCoopers and came to HBO in their internal finance department, working as an accountant there. And I got to tell you, the first week, I absolutely hated it. I knew day one, I said, this isn't going to work for me, because it was just a different environment. It's not that the organization was bad or that the team was bad. It was truly about the work that I was required to do just didn't fit with who I was and my skill sets were and what I was interested in doing. So immediately after that first week, I started to keep a list called things I want out of a job. And I would write down everything. I would be reading articles, going to panels. If I saw something that piqued my interest, I would write it down. So things like, I wanted written and oral communication to be an important part of my job. I wanted to be an expert. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a trainer. I wanted to be able to share the information that I had with other people. Honestly, I wanted to be able to wear jeans to work. So it's not just about the work dress code, but also about the environment. So I wanted something that was a little bit more relaxed. So being very clear about what it is that you want is important. And I want you to be mindful as you're going through different internships, as you work different jobs, that you are paying attention to the things that you really like, as well as the things that you absolutely hate. Now that should be a short list, but pay attention to things that you really like, and so that way you can attract more of those opportunities. And as opportunities come, you can assess it looking at that list and what the opportunity is. So, and with that, never settle. If you know what it is that you want, go for it with all of your being. Work hard, learn as much as you can, find mentors, but at the end of the day, don't settle.
Round of applause, awesome. All right, those are all very good. So I'll be brief to round out this question. I'm Adrian Hopkins. The job title had a lot of words in it, but I'll tell you what they all mean. But very briefly, I'm born and raised in Virginia, Virginian house. I went to undergrad at Yale, graduated in 2006, moved to New York the week after graduation, and have lived in New York ever since. So over the last 13 years, I've had a career that's covered media and advertising and design in various fields. Actually started off at VH1, doing strategy and business development, and then moved over into a design agency for about 6 years, and then moved into the New York Times to be a part of their advertising department back in 2016. My job now is not specifically related to any of those things, so the thing I actually want to kind of spark your mind around is the idea of being able to pivot and to be able to move gracefully through different spaces. But the job that I have right now is program manager of mentorships and coaching, and then the job that I don't get paid to do while I'm there is to be the co-chair of Black NYC, which is an employee resource group. Now, what does all that mean? Overall, the umbrella is my job at the Times is to make sure that people feel like this is a place where they can continue to learn and grow and develop as employees, as individual contributors, as managers, and as leaders, and to make sure that they can feel connected to other people throughout the company. The Times is headquartered here in New York, but we have operations around the world, both in journalism capacities and in business capacities, and we want to make sure that people feel like they can understand what's happening in a world outside of their own and feel like this is still one team and one place for them. The coaching piece of it is to make sure that we help our managers and growing leaders feel like they have the support that they need to take on increased responsibility. So we actually work with executive coaches and others to make sure that they can provide targeted support to be able to do that. And then for Black NYC, we want to make sure that this is a space where our Black employees feel like they can be their full selves in an environment where, numerically they're in the minority, but they should feel as much ownership in this company as anyone else. The thing I want to say specifically in terms of the skill to keep in mind that you can harvest right now while you're a college student, be able to write an email in 5 sentences or less that tells the recipient what you're about, what it is that you're looking for, and why it would benefit them to be able to give you what you're looking for. Like, you will use that skill for the rest of your life, and that brevity is going to make such a huge difference and prevent you from having what we call word vomit that nobody really wants to see when they open their inbox. That's going to carry you so far. I use it in every single job I've ever had, is to be able to get to the point quickly and succinctly. So I'm done.
Awesome. Exit round of applause. Awesome. So we're going to start now, just having a discussion now. So the first question I want to ask, dealing with leadership. And leadership is a very ambiguous word because when you're doing leadership, everyone has different definitions of leadership and what that means to them. As it relates to your area of expertise, entertainment and sports, what are the leadership qualities that you look for in college students that maybe a lot of people may not hear about relative to your industry that can help them to succeed and to get ahead? And so whoever wants to just chime in.
I'll chime in.
Okay.
So I work really closely with our interns. We have an amazing internship program at NBC Universal. If you guys have not applied, it's year-round. It's in New York, it's in LA. I mean, it's incredible. Miami as well. Everywhere we have an NBC Universal footprint. The biggest thing is, I think the whole idea of entertainment is quite glamorous, right? Everyone thinks it's so fun, and you go in, you're going to suddenly see Jimmy Fallon, and you're going to be able to geek out and have a great time. I think one is treating it as though you're going in to work at Wall Street. Really, come prepared, be super professional, be on time. Those are things everyone knows already, but also 100% know exactly who's in the room and know how best you can serve them. So it's not so much what you can get out of the internship, but what everyone around you can get out of the internship. Because then they're going to go, oh, you know what? That person 100% knew what I needed before I needed it. If it was a little bit more research before going into a meeting, if it's making sure that, it sounds silly, but the copying, obviously a big, huge deal, knowing where the various parts of the businesses are. So if there's the repo graphics team or working with the ad sales team, knowing where things are in the building, just knowing the lay of the land and being super professional and anticipating the needs of your surrounding colleagues is super crucial. So.
I'd add one thing to that, and I would say to keep the instincts of being a student. So even as a person who works, I've been out of school for 13 years, I still find myself being a student of my company and of my industry, because all of these, media, entertainment, sports, they're all changing so rapidly. So the more that you know about what's driving those changes in those industries, the better equipped you are that you'll be for doing whatever job, and you'll understand more context for why the Times, for instance, is launching a cable television show this summer. Like, why would we do something like that when you've only known as a newspaper? Your ability to read, the news, read the industry publications, do your own homework around, the key leaders at these places, it'll really take you far.
Anybody else?
The only thing that I would add to that is make sure you're able to build relationships, and not with just the people that you think can pull you up, but look at your peers. What are your relationships like with your coworkers, the people who are at your level, the other interns? What can you learn from them? Because more than likely, you all will be interning in different departments, and they have information that they can share with you that will enrich your experience, and that you'll be able to bring back to your team as well. So make sure you're able to build relationships, amongst your peers. Don't always look up, but look across as well.
I want to ask Gerald a question specifically as we're flowing, because it's kind of, your excellence was expressed through copying papers. And as millennials, as a lot of people talk about, I know we're Generation Z, when you graduate, there's this instant gratification that I come to the company, I want to be the CEO in like 3 to 5 years. In reality, greatness takes time. So in that process where you're copying papers, and it can be boring, it can be mundane, people are like, why am I not getting promoted? All those things that go through our minds in that process. What did you do in order to keep giving 110% every single day when those things try to get you distracted?
Well, first thing, I didn't have time for distraction. The major thing is everybody wants what they want when they want it. So you have to be that person that, one, operate under pressure. But at other time, it was just making copies. It was mundane. But sometimes you can take a mundane job and make it look like you're killing it. And what I would do is I would come in, and most people would have to drop off what they want to copy. I would actually go into the system, pull stuff out of everybody's inbox, have it copied before they got to work. So they'll be like, wait a minute, how did you go on my system? But it's like little things that you can actually do to make what everybody else says is empty, and you can almost like reinvent the job. Now mind you, this job wasn't there before, but when they hired me as a junior designer, they really still wanted somebody else to do this job. So I actually created a job for somebody else behind me. And that always speaks to always thinking about what are you going to do to innovate what's already there. And like a lot of times people walk into jobs and they feel, well, this is how everybody else does it. How can you do it? Now the other thing is, on top of that, it's how I was making copies. What else was I doing in between copies? I was like making copies, but then I'm talking to the president of this network. And then I'm talking to this person that works in this company or this, and I'm literally learning the skills of everybody else's jobs in the meantime. So while I'm making a copy, you see the copy, but I'm seeing I got an open invitation to kind of be in your business, ask you questions, and then now you're like, because you need my copies, you're going to start telling me stuff that I'm privy to. That's like, oh, so that project's coming down the line. And the biggest thing that really made the jump for me was knowing about a project and that they were bringing certain people in. I was able to go ahead, take that intel, go home, work on the project in my private time. So when we sit in the meeting and I'm shadowing and I'm hearing everybody say the wrong marketing information because they don't know the brand, they don't know the people, I'm able to pull out my sketches and slide them. And when they're like, well, when did you find time to do this? Oh, well, I was making copies, but at the same time, I was ear hustling and I was listening to what's going on. And that, you gotta understand, your office is like, you know, Wild Kingdom in some way. You know, like when you watch National Geographic, you see the gazelle over here about to get eaten, but at another time you see the other group of elk saying, we about to get out of here. So you have to be observant of what's going on in your office. You can't just sit at your desk and be at the weeds. You have to kind of pick your head up every once in a while, go to that water cooler, talk to some of the executives, and you'll find out that they're very open to giving information. They want to kind of talk. Like you got to say, you're dealing with entertainment. People have egos, so they want to sit and talk. And so you sit there and you're just like, yeah, whatever you say, yeah. But you're getting information that's feeding your purpose and where you want to be. And that was like one small thing that kept me going, because I was like, it was a bigger purpose behind the copies. It was where did I would see myself in the end game.
Yeah, for sure. I'd echo that. I had a former boss at the NBA who I'm still quite close with. I always made fun of him because he had those cheesy corporate catchphrases. And you know what I'm talking about. So one that he used a lot was, you know, you've got to see the forest through the trees. And that is a perfect example. Like, you know, you're upset because you come out of that promotion period or that promotion window and maybe you don't think you're earning what you should think you earn. Okay, there's a million other people probably that feels the same way you do, but okay, how do you kind of remove yourself from that situation and think, okay, there's a bigger picture? That's definitely something in my career that's helped me get through the day-to-day grind is, you know, you're making that copy for a bigger picture. It's going to end up on the president's desk. Another thing too, how do you understand sort of the hierarchy? How do you understand the relationships that he made his boss look good by doing that, and maybe that made the entire department look really good, and that elevated the department to other areas. So sort of understanding your role and your time, because that's a big deal. But you don't think through that if you don't sort of see the bigger picture.
I think a lot of times and this is open, I think a lot of times, well, I know when I graduated, one of the things that I was never talked about was I call the unwritten rules or the corporate politics. And so I think it's very important. I always want to have people that have been able to navigate and share with them what are some secrets or what are some things that are unwritten or some ways they can navigate corporate politics in order to get into a position that they desire or that they can make a greater impact. Because sometimes what I've learned is sometimes although you may see something, it's not always right before you're in at that moment. Sometimes you got to wait for the right time. So how do you navigate, how do you get through that journey to basically to where you need to get to or where you feel your dream is?
I always say, learn the rules so you can play the game, so that you can eventually break the rules. But you can't come in day one wanting to break rules, right? You need to learn the rules, be observant, ask questions. You don't have all the answers. You may have some answers. I know that everyone here, it's a room full of bright students, and you're going to enter into an organization. You're going to have so many ideas on how you can change things and make things better. But understand that there is a history, a legacy, some experience of trial and error and trying things, and then some working and some not working. And that's some information that you're not yet privy to. So understand how things get done. What is the corporate culture? How do things get done? Some companies are pure meritocracy. You have to do the job, do it excellent, and that's the way to move to the top. Some other jobs are purely about the relationship. Understanding how to do the job is the basics. And some people are saying, I do my job so well, why am I not getting promoted? Because you don't have the right relationships. So you really have to pay attention to what the corporate culture is, how things get done, who the major players are, who the players to stay away from are, right? Because at times there'll be people within an organization who are not moving, and they're kind of like, the old hat, and just people who have a lot of information, they have a lot of history, and they're not moving. That's not where you want to be associated or who you want to be associated with. You want to make sure you're able to identify the people who are moving forward and ask as many questions as you possibly can so that you can understand what those rules are so that eventually you can break them.
I would say also examine the social structure. Like a lot of times, a lot of people, early in my career, I felt things were not happening for me because I wasn't going out with the people that were doing things. And I would always wonder, I had to take ownership of myself. I was like, everybody's like, we're going out to this dinner. We're going to get drinks. We're going to do this. And I'm like, nah, that's not my thing. I don't drink. So the first invite, cool. Second invite, you out. So now, if you're not in the room and you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So now you're going to be the topic of discussion when they're moving pieces around the board to say, I want to put this person here. It's not about why I want to put them there. It's like anybody can do a job. Job skills are transferable. Just like everybody on this panel has started one place and they're doing something totally different somewhere else. But it's like, do I like you enough where if I have to take an 8-hour flight and you're my only person I can talk to till we can take care of business on the other side, do I want you to be with me? And that really sometimes some of the major decisions come down to that. Also, can I trust you to be confidential? A lot of us, and I'm saying this to y'all because I know y'all are younger, y'all love social media, and sometimes you guys can blow up your whole career on one thing you post. And I tell this to young people all the time. Sometimes you'll be in a meeting, they'll talk about a strategy that's going to roll out 7 months from here. You can't talk about it in the office. You can't be running your mouth about this is what's going to happen here, this is what I know this information, because a lot of times your arrogance wants you to say, oh, because I know this information, I got to let you know that I know this information. And sometimes the fact that you can keep your mouth shut and you can be trusted with a secret, don't be that person gossiping at the water cooler. Like, do your work, but get to where you want to be by socially climbing. That's why they call it a social ladder. It's that reason called, because that's exactly what it is. You do your work, but do I socially want to work with you to get you to where you want to go? And then you'll start having people giving you favors and say, well, because you kept that secret for me, I can trust you with this, I'm going to put you in this position because I know I can trust you. It's literally building trust from the ground up.
Can I just add one thing to that? So obviously the social circle we're talking about the first day on the job. You're walking in, people aren't going to be inviting you to things. They're not necessarily going to let you know about these things. What you need to do is very quickly, exactly like you said, understanding the corporate climate, the corporate culture, and finding mentors. Finding as many people in positions where you potentially want to be, in areas of the business that you're interested in. You may just be a coordinator at the very entry level. Try to get to know the person who's a VP or even SVP. I mean, people like boldness and professionalism. If you know what you want, like you just say, look, I'd love to take 15 minutes to go to coffee with you. I'm new on the job. I just started last month. I just graduated from University of Virginia. Love to learn a bit more about your business. And then you follow up and you become consistent with them. They become someone that when the time comes, they might tell you, oh, there's a new job here, oh, there's this here. So those are the little steps. So mentoring, finding a mentor is incredibly important. And there's obviously a difference between a mentor and a sponsor, but we'll get to that later because that's a whole different thing.
I have a question for you, so it's good. I have a question for you, Annabelle, because I have a two-pronged question. I'll start with you first. Because we talked about this. And I think it's always good to put a practical thing to what we're talking about. How do you build a relationship from a practical sense? Because, one of the things that I hear sometimes with the younger generation is it's more of a tech generation. So, you can have a personality on tech, online, but in person, you're a totally different person. And so then there's some lack of authenticity and a lot of other things that go into that. So I want to move from the tech build relationship, and I want to move to the in-person. And what are some practical steps that students can take here to connect with you all, but also when they go to their internships to build that relationship? And I've just said over a 6-month period. Because we understand the initial connection, but if you want to build a real relationship over 6 months, what are some actionable steps that you would advise?
Sure. Well, that's a great word, authenticity. Being authentic just to who you are. That is first and foremost the success to, anything, being a good person, being genuine too. But I'd say, and I think it's been mentioned on this panel, truly the desire to learn from someone else and sort of remove yourself from the picture, remove yourself from what you want, what you desire. It's not about you, it's about, I assume, where you want to get to, but if you want to build a relationship, truly getting to know somebody and sort of taking yourselves out of your shoes and have empathy for everyone else who's in that role, if they're your peer trying to get to the position. So I think definitely being authentic, really having that desire to learn. And again, I go back to what I originally said, being appropriate too. Showing that you've done your research, showing that you're coming equipped with wanting to truly get to know somebody because you're genuine about it and you have some passion. Definitely the ability to have empathy too, I think, would be the last part. To build relationships, it's sort of you care about somebody as a human being. So to get to know someone on another level, to build that relationship, because they'll remember you. They'll remember you for sure. People will snip out people that are fake, for sure. And there's a lot of that. Not in just our industries, just in general. So I think the way you can really truly be authentic, but show a desire to learn and grow for the bigger picture is definitely something key.
And I don't know you, Adrian, and I'm sure you are part of it as well, but I saw just in my experience the emergence of ERG groups. I know that's a really great way to connect. I often say to Gerald, you're part of associations. I think a lot of times it's not taught that what are your associations? What are the ERG groups? How can you build those connections, once you graduate? So if you want to talk about that, about the ERG groups and the benefits of it once a student, or even once a student graduates.
Absolutely. So the dotted line throughout my educational career and my professional career is that I always got involved with some type of student association. So in high school, I was the president of our Black and Latino, sort of student group. In college, I was the political action chair of our Black Student Alliance, and now, I've been the co-chair of our Black employee group at the Times. These are spaces where I've been able to actually practice a lot of leadership development skills, and so you can kind of see them as areas where you can use them as a testing ground, because if, in the best case scenario, if you have some budget or some type of freedom to be able to pilot things on your own, it's a low risk, low stakes environment where you could say, listen, I've had this idea, I want to do a book drive, or I want to plan a happy hour, and to be able to do that and learn what it takes to actually put together a project plan for something without having your manager review it, because when you're a manager, when you're doing this on the job, those are much higher stakes. You're now being graded, evaluated in some way. But the groups like, the employee groups are actually great testing spaces. And in the best case scenario, the corporation values the role that these groups play to inform what the experience is like for people who are part of that group. So I've been able to have conversations with our top leadership about diversity and inclusion at the Times because of my relationship and my role in Black and NYC. I've been able to see and have some input on what the annual diversity report looks like and sounds like, to be able to say, this is how I think people might react when you say this, right? So it's, you are able to, in the best case scenario, figure out the key skills that you bring to an environment like that, and then have leadership take notice.
And I feel it also helps you to add value to what you bring to the company. Because sometimes just you being who you are and the ethnic background you come from, that adds value to the culture that you're in. And a lot of times, like working in media, you'll see that right now there's been a real surgence of minority storytellers that are out there. But the bad thing is, you'll see those storytellers come and there'll be a wave. But you have to understand is, the more and more our country changes and the world changes globally, we have to be able to give that audience exactly what they need and what they expect. So now, how can you do that authentically if everybody behind the camera or everybody that's making the major decisions doesn't reflect that same group? So by being a part of the ERG group, even if the employees aren't there, you now have a group of people that are setting off that, okay, before we launch this show, can we have a sounding board of what's going to work and what's not going to work? And there's been a lot of great examples from our ERG where we've stepped in and stopped commercials from actually airing. Because, nobody wants to go out there and be like Gucci or be like some of those things that we've seen, but we've actually saved our company money. So that also goes value to like I said, time is money, but when you can show that your opinion saved millions, that shows that, we need more of these groups to be here. And we don't just have them just for Blacks, but we have them for every group, every gender. So we're able to really show them that, we not only bring value, but at the same time, we want to make people feel comfortable and inclusive. Because a lot of times you go to any place, even when you're in college, you go and gravitate to people that look like you. You gravitate to people that like the things that you like. That's the same thing in corporations. You're going to feel like, if you go in a room and I'm the only person of color, I'm going to feel weird. But when I go to a group and I say, wait a minute, these are where all the people of color are, it makes you feel more comfortable. You let your guards down, but then you're able to really share those experiences and help each other grow and give each other tips and be able to really push the conversation past why we're not here, but then how are we contributing?
There's some personal benefit to be gained from it too, because keep in mind these ERGs are cross-functional groups. So there are people from finance, there are people from CSR, there are people from creative, there are people from all over. And I know for me, that was actually how I made the switch from finance into accounting. I actually volunteered the second week I was at HBO to be a part of the leadership committee. I didn't volunteer, I had an interview for it. I raised my hand to be a candidate to be a part of the leadership committee for our Black Employee Network group, which is called Emerge. And once I was there, I was able to build relationships with people from different groups. And there was someone who was in the sales and marketing division and he had told me a little bit loosely about his job. I was able to go on, apply for it, and even though I didn't get a chance to circle back with him until my final round of the interview, and he's like, I saw him in the bistro one day. He's like, hey, I know we're supposed to have coffee. Sorry, my schedule's been busy. And I was like, well, actually, I have an interview coming up, and I think it's for the exact same role that you currently have. And he pulled me aside and gave me some tips on how I could be best prepared for the audience, because I had to present to, a room full of like 50 people within that department. So he was able to give me tips. Had I not had that relationship, I would have not known about the job, nor would I have been as prepared. So keep in mind that there are opportunities for you to gain from joining these employee network groups as well.
I also think another value of the employee network groups is really it just keeps you in touch with the world, what is going on, being a culturally minded citizen of this world. Perfect example, I know a lot of times I struggle in my day-to-day role. Today we have a game against the Celtics at 6 o'clock, and my phone is probably blowing up with ticket requests out the wazoo. And sometimes there are days where I'm just focused on what is going on for that day, and I lose touch with the world. I lose touch with other people, minorities or not. So I think it's important to just connect across the board, just be aware of what's going on in life. My boss is from New Zealand. I was aware of what happened in New Zealand with the recent massacre. I'm in sports, so I'm privy to international sports, to international movement. It's just something that I think it makes you feel good just to be aware of what's going on in the outside world, and your workplace culture can help you do that if you take the jump and continue to be want to be educated by the world around you.
Awesome. I got two questions a little bit about, like so much I'm going to ask, but I got to ask this question because it kind of sparked me. So it's like twofold. So the first question I want to ask is, how do you build your cultural competence to be more effective at working with diverse groups of people? I think that's really, really vital. And I think everyone here can speak to that. But my other question is this: as a person of color or someone that's diverse, how do you navigate that experience when you're the only orange person in the all red environment? How do you deal with that? I think that's a real situation, two real situations. And so I'll let you all take that away however you want to address that.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
All right, can we get a Snickers bar? Well, I mean, it's funny because when I first got to Viacom, especially on the Nickelodeon side, I remember sitting in offices and I was literally the only person. So at first I looked at it as wow, this is scary, I'm nervous, because you're like, this is really crazy. But, the good thing about being at St. John's, because you kind of get prepared for being that one person, but you got kind of mixed in. But in a corporate setting, the stakes are higher because you feel like you're representing the entire culture. So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like on the spot for all of us. And if I mess up, this is a mess up for all of us. But I looked at it as a bigger thing to kind of examine. You can't unpack all your history in one sentence. And a lot of times when we're there, we want to try to unpack everything right away. Like, everybody got to know my experience. And I rolled it back to the saying that I've always kind of, before I go in that meeting, I said, how do I make myself, small enough to digest, but big enough to be remembered? And a lot of times, like, you want to make sure that I'm going to give you just enough of what my background is, but I'm going to let you know you're going to remember me because of what I do, not because of what I look like. So I'm going to give you that answer that you need to that question. I'm going to creatively fix this marketing campaign that has a problem because nobody else could decide it, but I'm actually using my ethnic background. I'm using the things that I had to hustle when I was younger. All the skills that you learn from being black or from wherever you're from, those things come into play when you're sitting at a table, when you're sitting with people that don't understand. You have to understand, like, look, I'm here to do a job, but more importantly, I'm here to leave an impact and start a legacy where they meet me and say, oh, well, you're the first black person that I finally met. Because a lot of times these corporations have people from Nebraska, people that I've sat in rooms where people say, you're the first black man I've ever met. And I was like, really? But it's an opportunity to really change their view on what they think blackness is. And they say, well, I thought they were like this, and and then they're like, wow, we're more alike than I thought. And when you start to change that narrative and you now own it, to now you've become the brand ambassador for what black is, that's a beautiful thing, because now you're able to change people's narrative. And then on top of that, you now open them up to say, well, if I met that one black person that way, I want to meet some more black people because maybe they're just as cool. And that's the factor that everybody understands. Everybody has something to bring to the table, but how do you change the story and own it? And that's what I love about it sometimes. I love when I open a room and I'm the only person. Because I was like, this is showtime. You know, this is what we about to do.
I think this is working, yeah. I think the most... I think most important, regardless of, you know, your background, your diversity, thank you, is to lead with excellence at all times. I think that, you know, when you're, regardless of where you're coming from, when you get to the corporate level, you're already showing that you deserve to be there simply by the fact that you got hired. It is so competitive. I think no matter what anyone tells you, to work at a Fortune 500, 150 company, you have to be excellent. So it's just, and I know that the pressure of that can be overwhelming, but that's always the thing that you can fall back on at all times. So you may be the only person, you may be the only female, you may be the only person of your own ethnic background in a space, but if you are so good, you will always be remembered and you will always be the person that goes to the next step. So never sit on your laurels, never sit on the fact that, well, you know, I'm the only person here, so maybe I don't have to speak up or I don't have to do whatever it is that, you know, I'll fall into my comfort zone. Step out of your comfort zone and lead with excellence. You know, talent is first. Talent is first, diversity is second, always. So if you aren't good enough, you won't shine, but you are going to be good enough. You are good enough. And you're going to be at the corporate structure, and you're going to just completely shine because you're going to lead, again, with excellence at all times.
Yeah, I should look at that as, from what both of you said, that have your reputation enter the room before you do. And by that I mean the relationships that you're able to form with individuals within your organizations or companies. You know, performing at a high level, performing at a level where it's just it's unquestionable how great you are at that thing or how skilled you are at that particular area. Then anything else about you is really icing on the cake. But they know that they need you in the room for being an excellent researcher or being an excellent person that makes copies. To the cultural competency question, I think that questions are actually really good to get people to really open up about the things that make them unique. Because you have some people who may say, well, I think it's really cool that you grew up in X place or that you have this type of, you know, particular background. I'm so plain. It's like, no, you're not. Like, you grew up with a favorite something. So tell me about that. Tell me about, you know, your favorite movies growing up. Tell me about your, like, what did you do on weekends when you were growing up? Then you may get people to understand more about themselves and open up and share more about their own cultural uniqueness. It makes them more willing to have a sort of unique experience with you, if that makes sense. Like, get people to see that they also have a culture, and then you can really, you know, connect in what makes you different and unique at the same time.
Just to add one more thing to that, I think it's important that you get comfortable being uncomfortable. I know Gerald likes to walk in the room where he's the only person, but I hate it. I feel so weird and awkward, but I have to get comfortable in that space and understand that one thing that Gerald and I 100% agree on is that now the onus is on me to get the room to open up. And so it's about finding that common ground. Because as you said, we are more alike than we are disalike. So finding that common ground, to Adrian's point, ask a lot of questions. People love to talk about themselves, and you'll be amazed at what they'll reveal about themselves that you can then use as a connecting point. So with the onus being on you, it's not to say, hey, this is who I am, hi, like me. That's not what we're saying. But find ways that you can find that common ground, allow them to talk about themselves, and just be comfortable being uncomfortable. It'll get better, you'll get stronger, but it's never going to feel good for some of us.
And I just want to touch on something Adrian said that was powerful. Asking questions and letting somebody else realize how great they are. Just by asking, because that's leadership 101. Like, the best leaders in any company are the ones that can go to that person that feels that they have nothing, but also show them that they have something to contribute, and then get them to the aspect of actually contributing. Like, that comes through asking questions. If leadership from the top doesn't come down every once in a while and say, what are you doing? What are you excited about? What do you bring to the table? You're not a good leader. A good leader knows how to pull the best out of what everybody else says they don't have. And that I think is like one of the biggest takeaways. If you guys wrote anything down today, try to pull out the best in yourself, but also try to make somebody else shine. Because my team shines, they do most of the work. I'm just the person telling everybody, look how great my team is. And then when you keep doing that, then your team is now going to push you even higher. because you're pushing them to find their own greatness.
Actually, just real quick on that. So I have many conversations with leadership about what they do all day. And a lot of what they do all day at the C-suite and at the senior levels is they're managing other managers. So they're not doing the work that people in what they call the line of business are actually doing. So they're actually judged by their ability to produce great leaders. And so just to what Gerald was saying, that's one way to start to develop that leadership skill now, while it's relatively easy. And people, you should get to know the folks who are sitting to your left and your right, because, who knows what could unfold from that.
Sorry, no, they covered it.
So I'm going to go to questions real quick. So, stand on up. Speak loud.
All right, this one's for the ladies up there. What is it like being a successful female business leader when it comes to personal relationships with, how do you handle men who make less than you, who might have disrespect towards you because you make more than them or because you're so successful?
For me, that's a challenging question, only because my organization is mostly female dominated. We have a lot of senior leaders who are women. But I think it's important to Gerald's earlier point, you really have to build connections with people, and you can't allow what they're bringing into the situation for you as the leader to then drive how you interact with them. It's your job to be able to be composed at all times, to be able to talk about the business at all times. And if there's someone who has this bad attitude because of money or something, they're not going far in the organization. I don't know that it's even worth your time as a woman to even stoop down to that level. It's a different conversation if it's coming up for someone higher or a peer and they make more money. I think that may be a different conversation. But if there's someone, who's bringing that type of negative energy, I would just let them, kill themselves. I'm sorry, wrong words, but like their career, like, right? They'll. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that's a great point, and you don't want to associate yourself with that negative energy, that negative attitude. It goes back to knowing sort of who you are and where you want to be, and you're here for a reason. We all got here for a reason. So how do you stay true to those values and realize that in your role you're bringing the best impact? So regardless of what that salary is, I can say certainly in my role, I'm in a more or less in a male-dominated department, although Brooklyn Nets, for sure on the basketball operations side, there are definitely a lot of females, but I've had players that sort of look at me and they're like, well, what are you about? What are you doing? And you sort of have to, it's business, it's not personal, you're there for a reason. Once people see that and when you're there as part of the team, as part of the larger goal, to sort of help that, and money's out the window. You just you sacrifice yourself for the bigger picture. I, for sure, in my department, don't make the most money, as y'all know how much players make. And it's interesting because they recognize that too. They recognize people that work really, really hard, and they want to take care of them in the best way possible. So I think, sure, there's definitely some, questioning or intimidation on certain things, but I think if you're in a position and you're maximizing your potential for the impact of the larger team, then, it's all good at the end of the day.
I'd also just add that it's really not sometimes the men that are the problem, it's the women. So it's the women that might be at the same height as you or even higher, and they feel threatened, because I think for the longest time in corporate America it was very much just male dominated, so the males were fine with having one or two here and there, and so the elder ones, I think, tend to feel as though they have to hold on to what they've got without really thinking, well, actually there's room for everybody. So oftentimes it's not the males, it's sometimes your own sex that are competing with you.
I think a lot of it is perspective too, right? So my first job out of college, I was making $25,000 a year and working in Midtown Manhattan and living at home for 4 years because that was the only way I could survive. So, 12 years later, I'm out where I am because, heck, I grinded. Like, I deserved it. I worked hard. I did it the right way. So I think that you put it in that perspective. It doesn't matter what I make or really what I do right now, but I put in that work. I networked appropriately. I put in the time.
Another question. I saw some more. Yes.
With the experience you all have right now as leaders and all the positions you have in, is there some struggle that you have that I wish you would have moved earlier in your career?
Gosh, where do we begin? Like, where do we begin? There's so many. I think the biggest one is like lacking confidence. You know, I would always defer to the deferential point of view, like, oh, everyone else in the room knows so much more than I do, or oh, you know, let this person take that opportunity because perhaps I'm not good at it. If I had the confidence in knowing what I have now as like a leader within the industry and my relationship skills, my networking skills, and all of those things, I think I wish I knew when I was younger. It would have made such a huge difference. Confidence in your own skill set makes such a difference.
I would say for me, one thing I learned being incorporated to culture now for maybe 16 years of my career, if earlier I would have had a more diverse group of friends. I know a lot of us, we come from certain networks and it's like our family looks like us, our church family looks like us, everybody. But when we get out, we almost ostracize ourselves from opportunity. And I feel like I had to force myself to find other friends that were unlike me. And I'm talking about whether they're men, whether it's sexual preference, whether it's women, you know, whoever you want to build, like, I know this might be dating myself, a Benetton ad of friends. So Benetton back in the day, it's something I don't want. But you want to build like a Benetton ad of friends because that gives you cultural references to everybody. And it's like it almost connects you to every other culture, but it also really helps you build yourself as a human being, just to be able to be a global citizen, because there's jobs that are international that you might have somebody that can connect you, but it opens you up by your network of friends. And you'll find that the friends that are trying to tell you what you should do or should not do, they're not experts in any way. They're peers just like you trying to figure it out, and they're coming from one perspective. So you need those different perspectives to really change the trajectory of your life. And I really wish that I had that right as I got out of college, but I'm glad that I have that now.
Awesome. So we have to go to close this. So in 10 seconds, it was on me the whole time. Now I'm going to end with this. Because you said something real powerful, I thought, that I don't want to skip over, is character. And so in character, what is the number one quality they'll walk away with that they must absolutely have in relation to character in order to succeed? And then we'll close us off.
Again, thinking of the other person, like how the other person, like leading with empathy, that lends itself to really strong character. If you are able to put yourself in the shoes of anybody in the room, the person next to you, the person in front of you, that's when you are really developing a strong sense of self and a strong sense of character.
Well, she took mine, but that's okay. I would just say, we've said it before, be authentic to yourself. And, you know, that takes a bit of understanding who you are. And maybe that takes a little bit of time, but certainly be authentic to your work, to the relationships you have, because that can go a long way for sure.
My favorite word is integrity. Like, whatever you do, you have to have integrity. Don't put yourself in places where your integrity can't keep you. Like, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it, and you have to be what you say, who you are, at all times.
All right, so all of mine are taken. But I will say, be an eternal learner. If you're not, my motto is, if I'm not learning, I'm leaving. If I'm not growing, I'm going. Always be in this space of trying to improve yourself through knowledge. Learn more about yourself, learn more about others, learn more about the job, learn more about the industry. Just constantly be in this space of acquiring knowledge.
I say be a good listener and have either a great memory or take great notes.